All right, so I'm just going to walk through some key aspects of this. Let me turn my layers on. This is sort of the end result, and it builds on this whole simple concept of the box, that if you can sketch a box, it serves as a kind of scaffolding for doing other things, in this case, a kind of tapered form. So let me just sketch in a quick box-like form, which is one of the reasons why being able to sketch a flat plane, in this case, this plane would represent the floor, and if you look, you'll see that I generally will make 2, 3, sometimes 4 lines. I'm in concept, so I can dial up my accuracy. Why would I not just sketch with the accuracy set higher? I don't like it. I generally like my accuracy somewhere around 20, 22, 23%. It just means that I'm not relying on the straight lines, because the straight lines can actually be quite restrictive. I want to sketch quickly, and I don't want to get caught up in accuracy. So another key issue is this is a plane. If I were to copy this and move it, that's an isometric. I talked about this in class, but if I now go ahead and shorten it, that is, make it so that we see less of that surface, i.e. this surface here, we are going to set in motion a situation where there is convergence. These lines will all start to converge back more or less to the same place. Now, I say more or less to the same place because it's a sketch, and sketches are never 100% accurate. So let's go ahead and delete that, and delete that. And actually, I don't need this. All right, so let's jump back here. And one of the things that I like to do is I'll go ahead and I'll just quickly sketch a reference. Now you might be asking, why did I delete that other face? I actually like to just force myself into seeing the form, in this case a box, rather than taking that cheap little shortcut. Some people would argue against that, but I don't know. When I sketch, I kind of like to be in the groove, and that's one way to do it. All right, so I've got a loose sketch now. A loose sketch, but I actually dialed these in, and again, you can do that, whatever works for you. But I can see what's happening here. I can see a box. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take that bottom surface and that top surface. And if I'm thinking in orthographic, which I am always thinking in orthographic, I know that my concept does this, it tapers. Which means that if this is my bottom surface, i.e. this one here, and this is my top surface, this one here, I know if I were to sketch a top view, which I normally wouldn't, but I know that that would be what my seat looks like, and that these would look something like this. Now, I say something like this because, again, we sketch quickly, and we sketch in order to kind of see our idea. So that would be what this would look like in top view, and a side view. Let's redraw that. Might look like that. So the front and the side view look very similar. I'm gonna excuse me. I'm gonna sneeze. All right. So let's go ahead and let's remove this. And there's really just a key thing going on here, which is, if we know, let me do this in red, that the bottom of the box corresponds to the legs at the floor, so that's this here, and the top of the box corresponds to the seat, this here. So that means we've got a large box. Let's go ahead and just say that that's kind of here. And we've got a smaller box. The smaller box is also on the surface, this one here, that is more foreshortened. We see less of it. So one trick, although it's a trick I never use, I'll just go ahead and I'll sort of eyeball. I'll eyeball a smaller plane. So let me just sketch that in a slightly different orientation, in a 3-point perspective. So you can see what's happening here. That's a little bit off, so let me just adjust that. So in a 3-point perspective, your outer edges, these and these, will taper and your middle won't, because they're going down to a vanishing point that is going to meet, down there. All right, so let's delete that, delete all this. But here's the key thing that you want to understand is that I could go ahead and I could draw a diagonal, and then I could go ahead and say, all right, this is the seat, so that would be that there, and this is the bottom. Now, what's nice about that is all I really have to do is connect the vertices. Vertices are the corners of an object. Like a vertex here. In the case of a filleted edge, which is what this is, it'd have 2 vertices. But before it was filleted, it just had 1. All right. So let's come back here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sketch that. And I can see right away that this is really too extreme. So let's go ahead and just make a subtle little adjustment. And this is the challenge when sketching in such a foreshortened situation. I know this one's going to be okay because I can just see it. I'll explain in a second. So now I'm going down to there. Going down to there. Going down to there. And going down to there. It's probably right there. So it's a very shallow little taper going down to there. Now, so this gives us kind of a good indication of how important it is to position your box, because the seat is quite important. And if we look at this view, the orientation was much better. We're seeing more of the top surface of the bench, of the stool. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to delete this. And I'm going to resketch this. And I'm going to start with the top. And I'm still going to draw a box, but rather than sketching the bottom, which was here, and projecting up, what I did is I started with the top and I projected down. And I need to remember that there is also a way of doing this without even really sketching the box. So let me make sure I don't forget that. But at this stage, it's very useful just to get super comfortable with the box. Now I can see that this is a little bit off, and that'd probably be more like that. But I'm still seeing more of that top surface. Now watch what happens when I go ahead and I can just say, all right, I'm just going to sketch a box-like shape inside of a box. I did an okay job, but that's probably more like it. So what I did was this. I sketched a box. I'm simplifying this whole concept. Inside a box, with this inner box representing the seat and the outer box representing the feet on the floor. Now it should become much clearer. I'm going to do that, and that. And that gives me a double taper. I'm tapering in both directions, which means I'm tapering this way, and I'm also tapering this way. So this is the front view, and this is the side view. And if I were to finish this up, it'd look like this, and I'd have the little handle on the inside. So this is why it's important to sketch orthographically, and just so that you have a clear idea. Now, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. I'm going to cast the shadow. So let me go ahead and make a copy of this. And I'll make that a little bit smaller. And what I'm going to do is place the opening there for the hand grip. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm really just going to use, I'm going to eyeball this. And I'm going to imagine the center. The center would be a tiny bit back. Now, I've walked through this before, but let me do it again. Let's make a copy of this. And then I'm going to delete it. So in general, if I'm making a center line, it's going to be, I'm going to see more. And that's not very much more, so let me move that over. There we go. I'm going to see more on this side than I am going to on this side, because this is closer. And when I'm doing it the other way, I'm going to see more on this side than on this side. Now let's just kind of test that out. And if I were to draw a diagonal, we see that I'm pretty close. And I would never draw a diagonal. It's too slow. It's too cumbersome. This is really where I'm just guessing. So I can see that this is fine. And that's really all I need. I could go ahead and I could sketch in a center line there. Why? Because I'm always about connecting vertices. Now that I've got that, I can go ahead and I could sketch across here, project back, sketch across there. And if I go ahead, now this is not the way that I would do it, but if you were worried about being accurate, you'd project up and you'd project over and you'd project down. That's just a lot of work. So what designers prefer to do, and then that helps me locate where that would be. What designers prefer to do is to just work with simple rules of thumb, i.e. guessing more than projecting. But I'm projecting based on a knowledge of how projection works. And let's see if, yeah. So I should have been saving all my different lines. I should have been pushing out to a different layer. Let's turn that off. But it's never a bad thing to demonstrate how easy it is to move content from one layer to another. And the vertice I'm just going to delete. So that I'll delete, that I'll delete, that, and that. And now I have my handles, which I don't want to delete, so I'm going to make a copy of those. I'm going to turn those blue. And I'm going to go ahead and put that on a new layer. So again, a little bit of trickery, but it's good to know how to do that. I'm going to make a copy, turn that blue, and I'm going to drag that there and turn that off. Okay, so now I have my basic sketch. If I was to, do this, for example, I can go ahead and connect those. And I could also come in, but I would do that on a separate layer. I'm going to radius this bottom, meaning I'm going to put a little curve on there. I'm going to do that. I'm going to come up. Now, this requires projection back. And I'm going to do this fairly simply because you're actually not even going to see it. And I'm going to guesstimate here. Now this one you do see. Let's get that a little bit better curve. And I'm going to go ahead and repeat this. Add a inner volume. Repeat this. Add a second line to suggest. And it looks like I need to just come in now and complete this. And then I'm just going to highlight that layer. Darken that back edge. And finally, connect that. So I probably doubled things up a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy that to a new layer. And we can turn a lot of this other stuff off. And there we have, I'd say, a less successful version of this concept. But again, it's nice to work digitally because I can go ahead and I can manipulate things. I'm going to go ahead and just make a copy of this. And I'll make it a little bit smaller. And I'm going to go ahead, click on the bottom, and click on maybe this node here, pull that down. So working digitally is, it has a lot of benefits. Let's put this off to the side, maybe make that a little bit smaller. So while I wasn't completely happy, I'm perfectly happy now. I am going to add a second width, second edge. And then what I would typically do is just use the slice tool as well as the nudge tool. So I'm going to just nudge this, nudge that. Again, depending on how large I make the nudge tool, I can influence things far more with greater precision. If my nudge tool is set really high, I'm not going to be able to do that. And I can also take my slice tool and just delete some of these, but I wouldn't get obsessive with it. I can also dial this up and get that like that. All right, so the concept is basically there. I've manipulated it a little bit. The last thing I'm going to do is show you how, let me turn on some more layers here, show you how shadows work. So I'm going to use this, and the shadow concept is very straightforward. It's also a projection process. So we project from the vertices. We only really need 3, but I'll show all 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. What that does is it represents projection along the surface, the floor surface. Then what I want to do is shadows are all about 2 different things meeting. It's this and the ray of light. Where those 2 hit is going to define your shadow. So let me just go through and I'm going to do it just for the box rather than for the stool. That hits right there. Your projection lines representing your light, they should actually be parallel. Why? Because the light is coming from the sun. Now I could have just copied that, but I can see it. And there's the other point. Now, if I go ahead, I'm going to connect that to that, and I'm going to go back to that. But we can go ahead, because this would no longer be seen, and we can just have it look like that. And then we do that. That's the shadow. Let's go ahead and draw that shape. We'll bring the opacity down a little bit. And there it is. All right. So wherever you have shadow, and this, of course, is shadow, then you also will have shade. Shadow is what falls on the ground plane. Shade is what falls on the object. So let's go ahead. I'm going to kind of cheat this because your eyes are easily deceived. Even though I sketched the shadow for the box, I'm going to just pretend like it's the shadow for the stool. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm basically going to repeat this. So I'll do that. And that's going to go all the way to that edge. And it's going to come here. And I'm going to do that. And that's going to be more or less the shadow. I say more or less because I was originally sketching the shadow for the box. To have it be the shadow for, to have it be the shadow for the stool, it would have probably been a little bit more like that. Let's turn this back on. And I'm just going to use my nudge tool, raise the influence, and pull that in. Pull that in. I'll make a new shadow. And I'm going to make this the same. So that's, what you're seeing here. But the only difference I'm seeing now is that in this particular case, my light isn't coming, my light isn't coming straight from the side. It's actually coming a little bit more from the front. And it's actually a much more dynamic, dramatic shadow. But I'll go ahead and I'll just leave it as is. I'm going to then put my shade in. And the shade is going to be on the object. And already that will just make this look more three-dimensional. So it's not as slick as this, but it's basically the same approach. The shade is on the object. The shadow is on the ground plane. This needs to be a little bit darker. There we go. And, that sort of does the trick. Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn off some of these. That's the one I want. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move this. I had a bunch of layers turned on and off. Let me turn all those back on. And let's just do it one more time. And this time, I'm going to show you a little trick, which is what a shadow really is this. So let me draw. This is the top surface. The shadow is really the top surface, so I'm going to copy that, place down on the ground. Now it's going to be a little bigger. But it's basically that. Now this might look terrible to you. Let's go ahead and I'm going to get rid of that. I'll put it on another layer. And hide that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to make this black. And what I can do is this. I can go ahead and let's maybe get this more like that. So I've positioned that on the ground plane. And I'm going to make this quite light. But here's all your shadow really is. It's connecting this to this. And I liked the drama of the shadow coming down. So let's go ahead and just make that go there. But I'm still essentially using this top plane as a way to sort of work out my shadow. Now I'm going to adjust this for a little bit more drama. And let's go ahead and duplicate that. And we're just going to have that connect. So in other words, this is really connecting to there. And that's our shadow. So if I go in now and I just highlight that. Sorry, not highlight, but give it a fill. Let's lower the influence so it kind of tweaks it. I'm going to raise this up to maybe 60. Raise this up to 60. And the last thing I will do is I'll put in shade. And my shade is going to be here. And it's also going to be here. And we start to see the effects. So let's see if we can just get rid of these lines now. Let's stick those on a new layer and hide that. And there we have it. So the last thing that I need is a little bit of a transition. So I'm going to use the marker tool, and I'll make this marker fairly large. And I'm just giving a little extra. Now I'm doing this fairly quickly because I'm going to build a 3D model of it. I'm just trying to get a sense. So the only thing that's not missing, and that's an issue with concepts, let me go ahead and just add a little bit of gradient there. This whole marker effect can start to get muddy pretty quickly, so I'd be careful. The only thing that's missing here is that I have to add a white fill. And I'm going to do this at 100%. so that it looks like we can see through it. All right, so I would probably, add a few additional things. I'd probably heighten my outline as I did here. I actually really love the fact that you can see some of the construction, although this diagonal I would never have done, so I'm going to remove that. And I'll also remove that diagonal, because I would not have done that either. So it's good to know that you can do it, but in general, if it slows you down, you probably don't want to do it. So I much prefer this sketch to the demo here, but it's essentially the same process, and that's a lot of stuff covered. I'm going to stop there, and hopefully this will be a useful technique that you can start working on.